Could the world be teetering on the edge of a second Cold War, a devastating World War III, or worse, a nuclear confrontation? Recent developments on Novaya Zemlya, the once famed Arctic archipelago that hosted over 200 nuclear tests, including the Tsar Bomba, the largest nuclear test ever conducted, suggest that these questions are no longer confined to the realm of speculation. Satellite images reveal new construction, logistics, and heightened military activity, hinting that Russia may be gearing up for a chilling return to nuclear testing megaprojects. This isn't merely history repeating itself. It unfolds against a backdrop of escalating tensions between Russia and the West, intensified by the conflict in Ukraine. The timing couldn't be more alarming, as recent diplomatic maneuvers and military posturing add to the suspense. As the stakes rise, one question looms larger than ever. Is Novaya Zemlya on the brink of becoming ground zero once again? This is Megalith Mega Projects. Please subscribe to our channel for more amazing content. In the aftermath of the Second World War, the global balance of power shifted dramatically as the United States and the Soviet Union emerged as dominant superpowers, embodying opposing ideologies. This unprecedented struggle was waged not through conventional warfare, but via diplomacy and an intense arms race for nuclear supremacy. The stakes were alarmingly high, with the looming threat of mutual annihilation creating an atmosphere of deep distrust. This period, known as the Cold War, was defined by a relentless pursuit of technological dominance, where the greatest threats came not from armies, but from the destructive potential of nuclear arsenals. This competition, underpinned by a deep mutual distrust, fueled the development of nuclear weapons on an unprecedented scale. Testing these weapons, however, posed a challenge. The immense destructive power of nuclear bombs could not simply be unleashed in just any location. Remote, controlled environments were needed to measure the effects of these weapons and improve their designs without endangering civilian populations. Thus began the search for isolated testing grounds, places far removed from the densely populated cities of Europe, Asia, and North America. Both superpowers scoured the globe for locations where they could safely test their nuclear innovations. For the Soviet Union, this search led to one of the most desolate and forbidding places on Earth, Novaya Zemlya, a frozen archipelago nestled in the Arctic Ocean. Far from prying eyes, this barren land would soon become the epicenter of some of the most secretive and powerful nuclear tests ever conducted. The rivalry between East and West was about to escalate into a battle that would stretch the boundaries of human understanding and potentially the survival of civilization itself. But how did Novaya Zemlya, a place few had ever heard of, become so crucial to the Soviet Union's nuclear ambitions? To answer that, one must first understand the technological and political motivations that drove this need for ever larger, more destructive bombs. The arms race between the US and the Soviet Union wasn't simply about stockpiling weapons. It was about creating deterrents so terrifying that the mere possession of them would keep the other side at bay. This meant developing bombs capable of unimaginable destruction, ones whose power needed to be tested in increasingly remote and secure environments. In the early years of the nuclear age, the Soviet Union had relied on its Semipalatinsk test site in Kazakhstan. But as the scale of their tests grew, so did concerns about the safety and environmental impacts of using such a relatively accessible site. The fallout from early nuclear tests had already begun to show its effects on nearby populations, and this created a need for an even more isolated location, one where testing could be carried out without the risk of contamination in inhabited areas. Novaya Zemlya, with its frozen tundra and almost uninhabitable conditions, seemed like the perfect answer. By the 1950s, Soviet engineers and military personnel had begun transforming the icy landscape of Novaya Zemlya into a major nuclear testing site. Laboratories, barracks, airstrips, and control centers sprang up across the archipelago. Scientists and military leaders flocked to this remote outpost, where they would soon conduct some of the most powerful nuclear explosions in human history. The creation of Object 700, as the test site was officially known, marked a turning point in the Soviet nuclear program. It was here, far from the watchful eyes of the West, that the Soviet Union would flex its nuclear muscles, developing weapons capable of challenging the United States' dominance. The transformation of Novaya Zemlya was swift and thorough. Despite its forbidding climate, where temperatures could plummet to extreme lows, the Soviet military built a self-sufficient complex. Entire villages were relocated, and a new infrastructure was put in place to support long-term nuclear testing operations. In 1955, the first nuclear explosion rocked the archipelago. It was an underwater test, demonstrating the versatility of Novaya Zemlya as a site for different types of nuclear experimentation. This marked the beginning of a series of tests that would solidify the site's place in Cold War history. Each test conducted at Novaya Zemlya offered the Soviet Union valuable insights into the nature of nuclear explosions. It allowed scientists to study the effects of blasts in various conditions: underground, underwater, and in the atmosphere. The data gathered from these tests was essential for refining the Soviet nuclear arsenal and ensuring that it could keep pace with and eventually surpass the capabilities of the United States. But no test was as significant or as terrifying as the one that occurred in 1961. That year, the Soviet Union detonated the Tsar Bomba, the largest nuclear device ever created. Its power was so immense that the explosion generated a shockwave that circled the globe multiple times, and the fireball was visible hundreds of kilometers away. The Tsar Bomba was a clear demonstration of the Soviet Union's might and a calculated move in the broader Cold War strategy of deterrence. At 50 megatons, it dwarfed any nuclear weapon the US had in its arsenal, and its impact on the arms race was immediate. Both sides now possessed weapons so powerful that their use could mean the end of civilization as it was known. Yet this didn't stop the testing. Over the next decades, more explosions would occur on Novaya Zemlya, some above ground and others deep beneath the sea, as the Cold War raged on. As the Cold War entered its final years, nuclear testing at Novaya Zemlya began to slow. The Soviet Union, burdened by internal economic strife and growing international pressure to halt nuclear tests, conducted its last full-scale explosion on the islands in 1990. By that time, the world had already witnessed the horrors of nuclear fallout, particularly the disaster at Chernobyl, and there was a growing recognition of the environmental and human costs associated with nuclear testing. Although the Soviet Union collapsed the following year, Novaya Zemlya did not fade from importance. The newly formed Russian Federation inherited the site and maintained it as a strategic asset. It may not have been used for full-scale nuclear detonations anymore, but Novaya Zemlya continued to be a place of military significance, where the remnants of the Cold War's nuclear ambitions could still be felt. Periodic activities and rumors of renewed testing kept the world's attention focused on this remote corner of the Arctic. In recent years, Novaya Zemlya has once again come into the spotlight as tensions between Russia and the West rise. Recent developments, including the appointment on October 1st of a new Russian ambassador to Norway, which is located approximately 800 kilometers from the archipelago, have raised eyebrows in diplomatic circles. The timing of this appointment coincides with growing concerns about military buildup in the Arctic region and the potential use of the Novaya Zemlya nuclear testing site before November. Speculation suggests that these moves are strategically designed by President Vladimir Putin to assert Russia's military strength and to influence geopolitical dynamics, particularly considering the upcoming US presidential election. With Western nations, particularly the US, continuing their strong support for Ukraine amid the ongoing conflict, Russia may be looking to flex its military muscle to remind the world of its nuclear capabilities. By potentially reviving activities at Novaya Zemlya, Putin could be sending a clear message to NATO and the international community about Russia's willingness to escalate tensions if necessary. The possible timing of these tests before the US election has sparked fears that Russia is trying to influence global perception and put pressure on Western leadership. Furthermore, Russia's increasing military presence in the Arctic, alongside its diplomatic maneuvers with Norway, suggests a broader strategy to challenge NATO's influence in the region while asserting dominance in key geopolitical arenas. As tensions rise around Novaya Zemlya, the world watches closely. The prospect of renewed nuclear testing on the archipelago raises serious concerns about the potential for a new arms race, as well as the environmental and safety risks associated with nuclear detonations. While no tests have been conducted since 1990, the resurgence of interest in the site suggests that Russia is ready to resume testing if necessary. Whether this will happen remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: Novaya Zemlya's legacy as a pivotal location for nuclear experimentation is far from over. If you enjoyed this video, like, share your thoughts below, and hit subscribe to stay updated. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you won't miss what unfolds next.